Hey there! I'm genuinely glad you've decided to check out my video. If you feel like subscribing, that'd really make my day. Now let's get into it. The moment Jackson Hayes stepped into the sleek, minimalist kitchen of their upscale Seattle home, a faint whiff of lavender brushed his senses, and a silence colder than the granite countertops greeted him. A row of candles flickered on the island, their glow not inviting but sterile, like decor in a high-end real estate listing. Already seated at the dining table was Brooke, his wife of 7 years, wearing a tailored navy blouse, her arms tightly crossed, her expression as rigid as a locked boardroom door. "Sit down," she said, without a trace of warmth, gesturing to the chair across from hers. No kiss, no smile, not even eye contact. Just a command. Jackson felt his stomach twist. He'd barely survived a grueling 14-hour shift at his architecture firm. But this wasn't mere exhaustion. It was something deeper, foreboding. He sat. Without a word, Brooke opened a manila folder and slid it across the table with methodical precision. It was thick, 14 pages at least. "This is your marital performance assessment," she said, her voice level, professional. Jackson stared blankly. "A what?" She gave a slight nod. The document was a detailed evaluation covering the last quarter of their marriage, his engagement, communication quality, division of chores, frequency of intimacy, seriously, and even social synergy. "You've fallen short in 5 out of 6 key areas," she continued, unfazed. "Effective immediately, you're on a structured improvement plan." He let out a short, breathless laugh, not out of humor but disbelief. Her face remained unreadable. "You actually put together a relationship audit?" "I developed a model," she replied smoothly. "One you've consistently failed to meet. You've got 90 days. She didn't need to say the rest. He got the message. This was the same woman who used to whisper dreams in his ear on warm nights, now staring at him like a department head about to issue a termination notice. He felt disoriented. Brooke hadn't always been like this, once impulsive, affectionate, full of life. They'd once made love on the hardwood floor of their first apartment, laughing amidst takeout boxes and dreams. But everything shifted after she launched her consulting business. Overnight, their world became one of targets and deliverables. Even their marriage had benchmarks. "What if I say no?" he asked, voice steady. She closed the folder with a soft snap. "Then I'll initiate the separation process." He inhaled sharply. "You know I've been working 2 jobs, so you could have that loft studio and attend that retreat in Europe you said you needed." She nodded once. "Noted. But effort doesn't excuse lack of results. We both deserve better." He studied her carefully. This wasn't the Brooke who used to tear up when he sang country songs while flipping pancakes. This woman wore precision like armor. "This is how you see marriage now?" he asked. Brooke leaned in slightly. "Marriage is a strategic alliance, Jackson. Commitment is execution. Feelings are quantifiable." That night she slipped under the covers like everything was normal. Jackson remained outside on the balcony, heart pounding. That was the moment he realized, if she wanted to treat their relationship like a corporate venture, he'd counter with a takeover. And Brooke didn't know he had cards of his own. For the past few months, he'd been confiding in someone else. Someone who listened during late-night calls when Brooke claimed to be at client dinners. He wasn't going to play her game. He was going to rewrite the rules. The next morning, Jackson didn't appear in his usual hoodie and jeans. He descended the stairs clean-shaven, in pressed charcoal slacks, a fitted dress shirt, and the cologne he used for high-stakes client meetings. Brooke looked up from her tablet, eyebrows raised ever so slightly. "Morning," he said smoothly. "I've taken your feedback to heart. I've mapped out our daily engagement strategy into a formal plan." He handed her a leather-bound folder, sleeker than hers, polished, with links to a shared Google Calendar. She blinked. Jackson's smile was quiet, confident. He hadn't just read her evaluation, he'd studied it, then upgraded it, reinvented it. Her framework was now his, and it ran better. "You wanted structure," he added. Now we have operational precision. Oh, and I've included a mutual accountability log. It's posted on the fridge and updates nightly. Her eyes narrowed. You're tracking me? He sipped his coffee. Mutual transparency fosters trust, doesn't it? She said nothing, but the faint lift at the edge of her lips said enough. That was her fatal misstep. She thought he was playing along. He wasn't. While Brooke buried herself in emails, Jackson made a quiet phone call. He reached out to Alina Whitmore, a therapist he'd met one evening at a park after Brooke had skipped their anniversary dinner for a business mixer. What started as a random conversation evolved into something deeper. Coffee chats, laughter, a comforting hand when the nights felt heavy. Then, one rainy evening, as he sat in his car outside their darkened bedroom window, her text arrived. You deserve to be noticed. He hadn't crossed any lines, yet, but Brooke had, not through her corporate detachment, but through something Jackson had quietly uncovered weeks before. An Uber receipt tucked into her purse, destination marked Roosevelt Hotel. On a Tuesday night, she swore she had dinner with clients. He said nothing, just took pictures, saved screenshots, tracked the inconsistencies, and now he was prepared. Over the next week, Jackson executed her system flawlessly. Every metric hit, every interaction recorded. Behind the facade, though, he built his own dossier. Ignored calls, changed passwords, a new vanilla fragrance, odd, since she'd always hated that scent, late-night whispers into her phone, a candid photo of her laughing with someone on a downtown sidewalk. With him, Carter Linden, ex-client, unattached, affluent. Jackson researched everything, his company's latest project, his usual Thai takeout spot, and the luxurious penthouse he recently leased near Bellevue Square, confirmed via Jackson's real estate contacts. Brooke believed she was managing a clean, clinical exit. Jackson had already mapped her next 10 moves. The more she analyzed him, the more he exceeded expectations. Her performance graphs spiked, her notes glowed. But while she relaxed into the illusion of progress, Jackson set the stage for his own checkmate. Because he didn't just want her to feel cornered, he wanted her to know what it meant to be watched. The same way she'd made him feel. And that night, as she lay beside him texting under the blankets, Jackson turned and said in a soft, steady voice, I know about him. She stopped moving, completely. What are you talking about? Her voice barely carried. Jackson didn't blink. I'm not guessing. I've confirmed everything. Tomorrow I'll show you the evidence. The words caught in her throat, but she didn't speak. Deep inside, she recognized the shift. She was the subject now, under scrutiny, and there'd be no forgiveness or leniency this time. At precisely 7:15 the following morning, Brooke stepped into the kitchen, anticipating her usual black coffee and perhaps another meticulously dissected performance report from Jackson. But instead of caffeine and critique, she found a stark white envelope positioned dead center on her chair. On its front, in Jackson's unmistakably neat and deliberate handwriting, were 2 words, for clarity. Her hands quivered as she reached for it. The contents, 26 pages. The opening 5 were a chronological photo spread. Carter's car parked at a discreet hotel. Brooke emerging wearing a tan overcoat Jackson had never seen in their home. Her hand in Carter's, her face beaming, laughing. The photographs were crystal clear, painfully so. Not one was blurry. Each bore a timestamp. Page 6 held a transcript, a phone call, Carter's voice. Do you think he knows? Hers. Not a clue. He still believes it's all a communication issue. Then came the rest. A methodically built case. Text message logs, phone records, a concealed number she had assumed would be untraceable. Receipts under her name. Rideshare logs, trips that didn't match her consulting appointments. Her chest compressed as if air had vanished from the room. She looked up. There he stood. Jackson, calm, ready for work, a second cup of coffee in hand. How long have you known? She asked, barely audible. Since 2 months ago, he answered evenly. I started putting the pieces together after you skipped our anniversary for that so-called webinar. Her face drained of color. Why didn't you bring it up then? His jaw clenched. Because I didn't want to react. I needed perspective. A plan. You're the one who taught me that. Remember? She parted her lips to speak, but he raised his hand. I read your review, Brooke. Every single word. I know exactly how you framed me. But here's the part you never anticipated. He stepped closer, voice smooth but slicing. I don't lash out. I calculate. My silence isn't surrender, it's precision. You only notice the damage when the floor's already gone. She dropped into the chair, hands flat on the table. So, what happens now? Jackson's smile was cold, almost clinical. Now, you experience the very system you enforced. For the next month, I'll be running a complete ethics evaluation, daily check-ins, emotional tracking, behavior reports. This marriage won't end today. That would be far too generous. He placed a second folder before her, label restitution phase. Inside, documentation of altered therapy accounts, cross-checked timelines, her burnout weeks mirrored with photographs of her clubbing in Belltown, a notarized investigation summary. But the sharpest cut came in the form of a handwritten letter from a stranger, Alina, a woman Brooke had never heard of. Just a few lines, but they sliced deep. Brooke, you demanded growth. And when it came, you walked away. You don't recognize what he became because you're no longer beside it. Her voice cracked as she looked up. There was someone else? Jackson stayed silent. He didn't need to confirm anything. The message was unmistakable. She wasn't the first to be betrayed. You still want to wear the executive mask? His voice turned to ice. Then every lie, every sidestep earns a mark against you. You'll be assessed, Brooke, by your own standards. Her voice shook. What do you want from me? He met her gaze, unflinching. I want you to understand what it means to beg for love inside a framework engineered to strangle it. Rain began pattering against the window. The clock ticked. And in that moment, Brooke understood. He hadn't retaliated. He had taken control, and she hadn't even noticed when the knife turned. 3 days into the restitution phase, she crumbled during one of their scheduled nightly debriefings. She'd missed every benchmark. She'd arrived late for their walk, delayed her responses to 2 of his messages, past the 15-minute limit they'd agreed on. She had sent an apology. Jackson had filed it under, pending review. Now she sat at the same dining table where, months earlier, she had designed his improvement roadmap. But now, she was unraveling. I can't keep this up, she murmured. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks. Her hands trembled. It's like I'm under surveillance. Nothing feels genuine. Jackson didn't move. This is the structure you built, he said, tapping her behavior report. This isn't revenge, Brooke. It's accountability. Your favorite word. She sobbed softly, but Jackson withheld comfort. Not yet. She wasn't broken by guilt, only by the realization of what she had lost. I was scared, she finally confessed, her voice raw. Afraid you'd stop caring, that you'd check out. I tried to control everything because I didn't want to feel powerless. Then why did you betray me? He asked quietly. No anger, just quiet disbelief. She opened her mouth. No words came. So he filled the silence. You wanted love without limits, he said. While I was meeting your endless conditions, you fled to someone who demanded nothing. Instead of leaning in, you boxed me in. I didn't mean to, she whispered. Number you planned it, he snapped. Spreadsheets, timelines, feedback loops. You turned love into a corporate exercise. She wiped her tears, face streaked with emotion. Please, Jackson, I've ruined everything, but we can rebuild this. He leaned back, hands steepled. I'm not looking for resolutions, I want results. Then he handed her another envelope, this one a deep red. Inside, a document labeled Phase 2, Collaborative Penalty Integration. It resembled satire, but every clause struck home. Each deception came with a consequence. Every gaslighted moment warranted a reconciliation session. Each unaccounted night resulted in a deduction from her trust balance. "Is this punishment?" she asked in a hoarse voice. "No," he replied calmly. "It's balance." She rose suddenly, voice breaking. "This isn't love anymore." "You're right," he said, standing with her. "It's what remains. What's left after you traded substance for attention in a rented room." She trembled with rage and sorrow. "So what now? You reduce me to a checklist? Make me crawl?" Jackson stepped closer, so close she could see her own wrecked expression reflected in his eyes. "No, Brooke, I don't want your apology," he said. "I want you to know what it feels like to be dissected, doubted, and measured in a system you were never meant to survive, just like you did to me. Only then will you begin to understand the damage." She collapsed into the chair, as though gravity had finally won. Hollow, drained. The very framework she once championed now felt like a cage. And Jackson? He never raised his voice, never laid a hand on her. Instead, he quietly unraveled the authority she had so meticulously constructed, undoing it piece by subtle piece. Days turned into weeks. The dining table remained untouched. No more color-coded documents, no printed schedules or prepped charts. The binders gathered dust, the spreadsheets vanished. All that lingered was silence. But it wasn't an ordinary quiet. It was the aching kind. The kind that wedges itself between two people sitting inches apart but emotionally miles away. Jackson reached across the table and slid over a plain folder. No label, no tabs, no analytics, just a stark white cover. Brooke stared at it like it might detonate. "I reviewed your past month," Jackson said, voice low, emptied of bitterness. "This time, I didn't use data to understand you." Her throat constricted. "Then what did you see?" He drew in a breath. A woman putting in effort, but not for connection, for control, for a sense of safety. Brooke tried to speak, but Jackson gently raised his hand. "I know something inside you stirred, maybe guilt, but Brooke, our downfall started the moment you decided love should be systematized like a workflow." "I didn't know another way to hold us together," she whispered. "No," he said quietly, shaking his head. "You didn't want to save us. You wanted to supervise me." He slid one last sheet toward her, a separation agreement. No embellishments, no drama, just stark honesty. A clean ending. "I'm leaving," he said softly. She flinched. "You can't do this." "I have to," he said, calm but resolute. "Because staying would mean reducing myself again, fitting into the cold, calculated mold you mistook for love. That's not who I am, and you never asked who I really was." Tears carved paths down her cheeks. "I thought I was building something unshakable. I never meant to lose you." "You didn't lose me," he replied, voice even. "You handed me a schematic for emotional distance, and I followed it perfectly." Brooke buried her face in her hands, trembling. "I never slept with Carter," she murmured. "We kissed, just once. I lied about the hotel, I panicked, and then I couldn't stop lying." Jackson remained still. "It doesn't change anything," he said finally. "Because it was never just about that. It was how relentlessly you tried to regulate how I should feel. I was never going to be the flawless component in your system." The silence returned, thick and unyielding. Then Jackson stood, with slow and certain movements. He picked up his keys, his bag. "You always craved a framework," he said quietly. "So here's your final one." At the threshold, he paused. "There's a checklist on the fridge," he said. "Not for me, for the next person, just in case you try to translate love into numbers again." Brooke looked up, mascara streaking down her face, her breath uneven. "And the other woman?" she asked, voice cracked. "Was she real?" Jackson turned his gaze to her. "She was," he said, "but she's not why I'm leaving." He reached for the doorknob. "I left long ago, the moment you made me a project." And then he walked away. No yelling, no slammed door, no dramatic goodbye. Just a man leaving with the last piece of himself still intact. And Brooke? She remained motionless, surrounded by the shattered remains of her own design. The strategies, the protocols, the meticulously managed life. None of it could hold love together. Because in the end, she saw the truth too late. Love isn't meant to be measured, only destroyed by the effort to do so. And that's where this story ends. Share your thoughts below. Thank you for joining us. If this story resonated with you, consider exploring more here. Until next time, be well.